All right, today on The Explainer, we're diving into something pretty wild. A proposal to use artificial intelligence to fix one of the deepest, most tragic flaws in our criminal justice system. But to kick things off, I just want to start with a number. 25 years. Just let that sink in for a second. 25 years. What do you do in that much time? You could raise a family, build an entire career. The world completely changes. Well, for one man, that's exactly how long he spent locked away in prison for a crime he absolutely did not commit. And here's the absolute kicker, the part that's just so hard to stomach. The evidence that could have freed him, it wasn't lost. It wasn't buried somewhere undiscovered. Nope. It was sitting right there in a file cabinet held by the very people who were prosecuting him. This wasn't just some accident. It was a choice. So yeah, let's talk about that 25-year injustice. This is the story of a man named Michael Morton. Back in 1986, his wife Christine was brutally murdered. The authorities pinned it on him, and just like that, his life was stolen. But what happened to him shines a massive spotlight on a fundamental flaw in how our entire justice system is supposed to operate. I mean, you just have to see what was actually hidden from the defense. It's staggering. The prosecutor, a guy named Ken Anderson, buried a transcript where Morton's own 3-year-old son told police a monster killed his mom and that his daddy wasn't even home. He hid reports about a suspicious green van seen near the house. He even hid records showing his wife's credit card was used after she was dead. All of it, just sitting in a file, collecting dust until 2011 when DNA finally proved he was innocent. And the tragedy here, it just keeps spreading. It doesn't stop with Michael Morton. While he sat in that prison cell, the real killer, the man who actually murdered his wife, went on to kill another woman. So you see, this isn't just about one man's stolen life. It's about a ripple effect, a single failure that creates waves of devastation for so many others. Okay, so Morton's case is this perfect, heartbreaking example of a very specific kind of failure in our legal system. And to really get why this happens over and over again, we need to talk about the rule that was broken. It's called the Brady rule, and it's at the heart of this huge paradox. So the Brady rule, it comes from a big Supreme Court case back in 1963, and it's supposed to be a fundamental piece of American justice. Here's the deal. It says prosecutors have a constitutional duty, not a suggestion, a duty, to turn over any and all evidence that could help the defendant. And it doesn't matter if the defense even asks for it. The whole point is that a trial should be a search for the truth, right? Not just a game of who wins and who loses. And we're not talking about some tiny little loophole here. The rule is incredibly broad. It covers 3 big buckets of evidence. First, you've got exculpatory evidence. That's the stuff that straight up points to someone's innocence. Then there's impeachment evidence, which is anything that makes the prosecution's witnesses look shaky or less credible, a hidden deal or a criminal history. And finally, there's mitigating evidence, which is stuff that might not get you off the hook completely, but could lead to a lighter sentence. And right here, this is where you find the paradox. It's a massive conflict of interest baked right into the system. On one hand, you have this constitutional duty. Prosecutors must hand over evidence that helps the other side. But on the other hand, what's a prosecutor's main goal? Winning cases. Their careers are built on getting convictions. So we're asking them to voluntarily hand over the very thing that could sink their own case. We're trusting an adversary to play fair in a system that's all about competition. That's a really tough spot to be in. Now, it's easy to look at the Michael Morton case and think, wow, what a tragedy. But that must be a rare thing, a real bad apple. But you'd be wrong. This is a systemic failure. It's happening all the time. And it's not just happening to ordinary people. It happens at the very highest levels of power. I mean, just look at what happened to a sitting U.S. senator. Okay, so get this. It's 2008. U.S. Senator Ted Stevens from Alaska gets convicted on 7 felony counts, right before an election that he ends up losing by a razor-thin margin. The whole case hinged on the testimony of one guy, Bill Allen. But here's what the jury never heard. Allen had told the prosecutors completely different stories before. And even worse, he had a history of pressuring a teenager to lie under oath for him. When all this came out, the judge didn't just reverse the conviction, He threw it out completely, slamming the prosecution for systematic concealment of evidence. And this isn't just a Texas thing or an Alaska thing. This is a national problem. Look at New Orleans. At least 36 convictions overturned because of this kind of misconduct. Go to Brooklyn. A murder conviction gets tossed after 15 years because prosecutors hid a deal they made with an informant. Over in Virginia, a capital murder conviction overturned after it turned out police had been feeding information to their key witness. It's case after case after case. The proof is there, sitting in a file, and the system just fails. So, okay, we've established the problem. It's huge, it's systemic, and relying on human good faith in an adversarial system just isn't cutting it. So what's the fix? Well, the source material for this explainer proposes something pretty radical. What if we just take human discretion out of the loop? What if we use technology to force transparency? So here are the nuts and bolts of how this AI compliance system would actually work. It's a 4-step process. Step 1. Everything gets logged. Every police report, every video, every scrap of notes goes into one big central database. Step 2. The AI gets to work. It scans all that data, and using pattern recognition, it automatically flags anything that looks like it could be Brady material. Step 3. The system creates an unbreakable audit trail. You can see in real time exactly what's been shared with the defense. And finally, step 4. Anything the AI flags goes into a queue that the defense can just access. No asking, no begging, it's just there. Now let's rewind and apply this. Think about Michael Morton. An AI would have instantly flagged his son's statement about a monster because it directly contradicts the prosecution's entire story. It would have flagged the credit card use. Boom, game changer. Or what about the Ted Stevens case? The AI would have sniffed out the inconsistencies in the star witness's testimony in a heartbeat. It would have flagged his history of perjury. See, for a machine, this isn't some complex moral dilemma. It's just pattern matching. And that's something AI is incredibly good at. All right, so this all sounds amazing on paper, right? But how in the world do you actually get something like this implemented in the real world with all its bureaucracy and resistance to change? Well, ironically, the answer might lie in the fact that our justice system is already in crisis mode in many places. And that crisis, it creates a huge opportunity for real change. Let's look at Harris County, Texas. They run one of the biggest jail systems in the country. And right now, it's a disaster. It is dangerously overcrowded. A staggering 80% of the inmates have mental health issues. There were 24 deaths there in just 2022. Assault rates are through the roof. And now, they're under the microscope with the federal government watching them. So for a place like that, a system that could reduce wrongful convictions and speed up cases, well, it's not just a nice idea. It's a potential lifeline. And the great thing is, you don't have to flip a switch and change everything overnight. The rollout could be really smart and phased. You start with a pilot program, maybe in a place like Harris County that's desperate for a solution. Focus on high volume but lower stakes cases first. Then, once you prove that it works, you incentivize other places to opt in voluntarily. And from there, you gradually expand it, rolling it out to more and more serious crimes. It's a step-by-step path. Now, obviously, there are going to be hurdles. You need to get new laws on the books, like the Michael Morton Act that Texas already passed. Security is a big one. You need rock-solid cybersecurity. And yeah, it's going to cost money up front. But let's be real. When you weigh that cost against the millions paid out for wrongful conviction lawsuits, not to mention the human cost, which you can't even put a price on, investing in a system that prevents these tragedies, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. And that brings us to the real heart of the issue. The argument here isn't really about the tech. The technology to do this, pattern recognition, automated compliance, it already exists. We have it. The real question is a human one. Do we have the will, the political and moral courage to actually implement a solution for a problem we all know is real and devastating? So that's what it all comes down to. We're left with this one simple, urgent question. We have a potential solution. We have the tragic stories, like Michael Morton's, that show us exactly what happens when we do nothing. So will we choose to implement this solution, or will we just wait for the next innocent person to spend decades of their life in a cage for a crime they didn't commit?